I'm gonna let you out of your cage. Hopefully you can hear me well. Hello and welcome. Today, I'm reading the Wikipedia page for boredom. You can see that, not sure how well you can. Let's just get into it. In conversational usage, boredom, ennui, or tedium is an emotion characterized by uninterest in one's surroundings, often caused by a lack of distractions or occupations. Although there is no universally accepted definition of boredom, but whatever it is, researchers argue is not simply another name for depression or apathy. It seems to be a specific mental state that people find unpleasant, a lack of stimulation that leaves them craving relief, with a host of behavioural, medical, and social consequences. According to BBC News, boredom can be a dangerous and disruptive state of mind that damages your health. Yet research suggests that without boredom, we couldn't achieve our creative feats. An experience without qualities, boredom and modernity. Elizabeth Godstein traces the modern discourse on boredom through literary, philosophical, close enough, and sociological texts to find that as a discursively articulated phenomenon, boredom is at once objective and subjective, emotion and intellectualization, not just a response to the modern world, but also a historically construed strategy for coping with its discontents. In both conceptions, boredom has to do fundamentally with an experience of time, such as experiencing the slowness of time and problems of meaning. Etymology and terminology. The expression to be a bore had been used in print in the sense of to be tiresome or dull since 1768 at the latest. The expression boredom means state of being bored, 1852 from bore. It has also been used in a sense bores as a class, 1883, and practice of being the bore, 1864, a sense probably boring to borism, 1833. Not going to explain what that is because it doesn't say. The word bore as a noun, meaning a thing which causes ennui or annoyance, is attested to since 1778 of persons by 1812. The noun bore comes from the verb bore, which had the meaning to be tiresome or dull, first attested in 1768. A vogue word, according to Gross, possibly a figurative extension of to move forward slowly and effortlessly as a whole boring tool does. A popular misconception is that Charles Dickens coined the term boredom in his work Bleak House, published in 1853. The word, however, has been attested since at least 1829 in an issue of the publication The Albion. A French term for ennui is sometimes used in English as well, at least since 1779. The term ennui was first used as a French word in English in the 1660s and was nativized by 1758. The term ennui comes from French ennui, from Old French ennui, annoyance, a black formation from annoyer, I'm not French. The German word for boredom is Langweil, a compound made of lang, long, and veil, while, which is in line with the common perception that one is bored, time passes tortuously slowly. Psychology. Different scholars use different definitions of boredom, which complicates research. Boredom has been defined by Cynthia D. Fisher in terms of its many potential psychological processes. An unpleasant, transient, affective state which the individual feels a pervasive lack of interest and difficulty concentrating on the current activity. Mark Cleary et al. Described boredom as an affective experience associated with cognitive attentional processes. Robert Plutchik characterized boredom as a mild form of disgust. In positive psychology, boredom is described as a response to a moderate challenge for which the subject has more than enough skill. There are three types of boredom, all of which involve problems of engagement of attention. These include times when humans are prevented from engaging in unwanted activity, when humans are forced to engage in unwanted activity, or when people are simply unable, for some other reason, to maintain engagement in an activity. Boredom proneness is a tendency to experience boredom at all times. This is typically assessed by the boredom proneness scale. Recent research has found that boredom proneness is clearly and consistently associated with failures of attention. Boredom and its proneness are both theoretically and empirically linked to depression and similar symptoms. Nonetheless, boredom proneness has been found to be as strongly correlated with attentional lapses as with depression. Although boredom is often viewed as trivial and mild irritant, proneness to boredom has a link to a very diverse range of possible psychological, physical, educational, and social problems. This next sentence is a lot. Absent-mindedness is where a person shows inattentive or forgetful behavior. Absent-mindedness is a mental condition in which the subject experiences low levels of attention and frequent distraction. Absent-mindedness is not a diagnosed condition, but rather a symptom of boredom and sleepiness which people experience in their daily lives. People who are absent-minded tend to show signs of memory lapse and weak recollection of recently occurring events. This can usually be a result of a variety of other conditions, often diagnosed by smart people, such as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and depression. In addition to absent-mindedness leading on to an array of consequences affecting daily life, it can also have more severe long-term problems. Lethargy is a state of tiredness, weariness, fatigue, or lack of energy. It can be accompanied by depression, decreased motivation, or apathy. Lethargy can be a normal response to boredom, adequate sleep, overexertion, overworking, stress, lack of exercise, or a symptom of the disorder. When part of a normal response, lethargy often resolves with rest, adequate sleep, decreased stress, and good nutrition. Boredom is philosophy. Boredom is a condition characterized by a perception of one's environment as dull, tedious, and lacking in stimulation. This can result from leisure and a lack of aesthetic interests. Labour and art may be inhibited and passive or immersed in tedium. There is an inherent anxiety in boredom. People will expend considerable effort to prevent or remedy it, yet in many circumstances it is accepted as suffering to be endured. Common passive ways to escape boredom are to sleep or to think creative thoughts, daydream. Typical active solutions consist in an intentional activity of some sort, often something new, as familiarity and repetition lead to tedious. During the fin de siècle, the French term for the end of the 19th century in the West, some of the cultural hallmarks included ennui, cynicism, pessimism, and a widespread belief that civilization leads to a decadence. Boredom also plays a role in existentialists for Søren Kierkegaard and Friedrich Nietzsche, that was wrong, were two of the first philosophers considered fundamental to the existentialist movement. Like Pascal, they were interested in people's quiet struggle with the apparent meaningless of life and the uses of aversion to escape from boredom. Kierkegaard's Either Or describes the rotation method, a method used by high-level atheists in order to avoid boredom. Method is an essential hedonistic aspect of the aesthetic way of life for the athlete. One constantly changes what one is doing in order to maximize the enjoyment and pleasure derived from each activity. In contexts where one is confined spatially or otherwise, boredom may be met with various religious activities. Not because religion would want to associate itself with tedium, rather partly because boredom may be taken as the essential human condition, to which God, wisdom, or morality are the ultimate answers. Many philosophers, like Arthur Schopenhauer, espouse this view. The view of religiosity among boredom does affect how often people are bored. People who had a higher religiosity performing boring tasks reported less boredom than people with less religiosity. People performing the meaningless tasks had to search less for a meaning. Martin Heidegger Martin, I'm not going to bother with that again, we're not editing this, wrote about boredom in 2 texts available in English in the 1920/30 semester lecture course, The Fundamental Concepts of Metaphysics, and again in the essay, What is Metaphysics?, published in the same year. In the lecture, he included about 100 pages in boredom, probably the most extensive for school treatment ever of the subject. He focused on winning at railway pages, in particular as a major context of boredom. Soren Kierkegaard remarks in Either Or that patience cannot be depicted visually, since there is a sense that any immediate moment of life may be fundamentally tedious. This is tedious. Blaise Pascal in The Pennies discusses the human condition in saying we seek rest in a struggle against some objects. When we have overcome these, rest proves unbearable because of the boredom it produces. And later states that only a finite and immutable object, that is, God himself, can fill his infinite abyss. Without seamless focus, the individual is confronted with nothingness, the meaninglessness of existence, and experience existential anxiety. Heidegger states his idea as follows: profound boredom drifting here and there in the abysses of our existence like a muffling fog moves all things in men, and oneself along with it, into remarkable indifference. This boredom reveals being as a whole. Schopenhauer used the existence of boredom in an attempt to prove the vanity of human existence, stating, for if life in the desire for which our essence and existence consists possess in itself a positive value and real content, there would be no such thing as boredom. Mere existence would fulfill and satisfy us. Erich Fromm and other thinkers of critical theory speak of boredom as a common psychological response to industrial society, where people are required to engage in alienated labour. According to Fromm, boredom is perhaps the most important sort of aggression and destructiveness today. For Fromm, the search for thrills and novelty that characterises consumer culture are not solutions to boredom, but a mere distraction from boredom, which he argues continues unconsciously. Above and beyond taste and character, the universal case of boredom consists in any instance of waiting, as Heidegger noted, such as in line for someone else to arrive or finish a task, or while one is travelling somewhere. The automobile requires faster reflexes, making its operator busy, and hence, perhaps, for other reasons as well, makes the ride more tedious despite being over sooner. In some NGUNI, I'm not going to try and pronounce it, languages such as Zulu, boredom and loneliness are represented by the same word. I'm not going to try and pronounce that. This adds a new dimension to the oft-quoted definition of UBUNTU. A person is a person through other people. Cause and effects. Although it has not been widely studied, research on boredom suggests that boredom is a major factor impacting diverse areas of a person's life. People ranked low on a boredom-prone scale were found to have better performance in a wide variety of aspects of their life, including career, education, and autonomy. Boredom can be a symptom of clinical depression. Boredom can be a form of learned helplessness, a phenomenon closely related to depression. Some philosophies of parenting propose that if children are raised in an environment devoid of stimuli and are not allowed or encouraged to interact with the environment, they will fail to develop the mental capacities to do so. In a learning environment, a common cause of boredom is a lack of understanding. For instance, if one is not following or connecting to the material in a class or a lecture, it will usually seem boring. However, the opposite can also be true. Something that is too easily understood, simple as transparent, can also be boring. Boredom is often inversely related to learning, and in school may be a sign that a student is not challenged enough or too challenged. An activity that is predictable to the students is likely to bore them. A 1989 study indicated that an individual's impression of boredom may be influenced by the individual's degree of attention, as a higher acoustic level of distraction from the environment correlated with higher reportings of boredom. Boredom has been studied as being related to drug abuse among teens. Boredom has been proposed as a cause of pathological gambling behavior. A study found results consistent with their hypothesis that pathological gamblers seek stimulation to avoid states of boredom and depression. It has been suggested that boredom has an evolutionary bias that encourages humans to seek out new challenges, may influence humanizing and ingenuity. Some recent studies have suggested that boredom may have some positive effects. A low student environment may lead to an increased creativity and may set the stage for a eureka moment in the workplace. Bore out is a management theory that posits that lack of work, boredom, and consistent lack of satisfaction are common malaise affecting individuals working in modern organizations, especially in office-based white-collar jobs. This theory was first expounded in 2007 in Diagnosis Bore Out, a book by Peter Werder and Philip Rothlen, two Swiss business consultants. They claim the absence of meaningful tasks rather than the presence of stress is many workers' chief problem. A banishment room is a modern employee exit management strategy where employees are transferred to a department where they are exceeding meaningless work until they become disheartened enough to quit. Since the resignation is voluntary, the employee will not be eligible for certain benefits. The legality and ethics of the practice is questionable and may be constructed as constructive dismissal by the courts in some regions of the culture. Meh is an interjection using an expression of indifference or boredom. It may also mean, be as it may, it's often regarded as a verbal shrug of the shoulders. The use of the term meh shows that the speaker is apathetic, uninterested, or indifferent to the question or subject at hand. It is occasionally used in an adjective meaning something that is mediocre or unremarkable. Oh god. Superfluous man. The superfluous man is an 1840s and 1850s Russian literary concept derived from the bionic hero. It refers to an individual, perhaps talented and capable, who does not fit into social norms. In most cases, this person is born into wealth and privilege. Typical characteristics are disregard, social values, cynicism, and existential boredom. Typical behaviours are gambling, drinking, smoking, sexual intrigues, and duels. He is often unapathetic and clearly distresses others with his actions. Existentialist fiction. The bored anti-hero became prominent in the early 20th century. Existentialist works such as Franz Kafka's The Metamorphosis, 1915, and Paul Sartre's Le Noise, French for Nausea, 1938, and Albert Camus' L'Étrange, French for The Stranger, 1942. The protagonist in these works is an indecisive central character who just through his life is marked by ennui, angst, and alienation. Last bit. Grunge lit. Grunge lit in Australian literary genre of fictional or semi-autobiographical writing in the early 90s about young adults living in an inner city world of disintegrating futures where the only relief from boredom was through nihilistic pursuit of sex, violence, drugs, and alcohol. Oh my god! Often the central characters are disfranchised, lacking drive, determination beyond the desire to satisfy their basic needs. It was typically written by new young authors who examined gritty, dirty, real existences of everyday characters. It has been described as both a subset of dirty realism and often an offshoot of Generation X literature. Stuart Glover states that the term grunge lit takes the term grunge from the late 80s and 90s Seattle grunge bands. Obviously, the term grunge lit was mainly a marketing term used by the publishing companies. Is that with the obvious who have been categorized as grunge lit writers reject the label. See also apathy, cabin fever, drab, colour, dyslexia, and motivation. And that, my good and loyal friends, is it. If for whatever reason you liked that, like and subscribe, it helps me out a bunch. We are currently on the road to 100 subscribers, so I've got something big planned, but it's going to be a surprise for you guys, and I guess kind of me in a way. You'll see. As always, have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you later. I really hope that worked. I even died halfway through that. How long was that? Only 19 minutes. That's not bad, actually. Shall I stop this?